My mother is a florist, so we had a flower shop attached to my house when I was growing up.
Welcome to The Art of Gardening. I'm your host, Melissa Lalo-Johnson, and I am thrilled to have one of my dear friends, Natalie Carmolli from Spring Meadow Nursery, growers of Proven Winners Color Choice. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So Natalie, so many questions for you. We know there's so many interesting things that you're involved in and things that you do. Can you give us a bit of a background about the Spring Meadow Nursery and then pairing up with Proven Winners and how that all works?
That's actually a really great question because I think that is one of the biggest sources of confusion for people, especially people I meet in the gardening world and in the, people that work within the gardening world as communicators or nursery owners or, anybody that understands Proven Winners. And then they hear Proven Winners Color Choice thrown in there. Proven Winners is a spectacular national plant brand that a lot of people have heard of, but all of the plants we grow are grown at independent nurseries really across North America. So there are a few big nurseries like us, Spring Meadow Nursery. We are the licensed grower of all Proven Winners Color Choice shrubs. So what I like to tell people when they're taking a tour here at Spring Meadow Nursery is if you see a Proven Winners Color Choice shrub anywhere in North America at a nursery or a garden center, anywhere in North America, chances are it was born at our nursery. So we're a family-owned nursery. About 40 minutes away from us is Walter's Gardens. They're also an independent family-owned nursery. They're responsible for growing the starter shrubs or the starter plants for all Proven Winners perennial plants. And then we've got Pleasant View out on the east side of the state and Four Star Nursery. They're both partners and they grow annuals. One of the partners also will finish out some shrubs as well. So what it is it's really a partnership of a lot of nurseries working together that all grow under this Proven Winners brand name. Because we believe in the product, we understand how great this product is, and so each independent nursery has really thrown their entire operation into growing, into being really specialists into growing a type of a Proven Winners plant.
So, how did you get started in this career path? And how long have you been with them?
That's an interesting question because I grew up in the horticulture industry. My mother is a florist, so we had a flower shop attached to my house when I was growing up. We moved into this house that had a greenhouse in the backyard, and that kind of started the whole thing with my mother. So we started out growing bedding plants, and then that turned into a flower shop, and I grew up working in that flower shop. When I went off to college to get my theater degree, I actually have a theater and an art degree. I worked my way through college working in flower shops, and then I kind of split from it for a little while, and I did a lot of theater. And when I got my job here 5 years ago at Spring Meadow Nursery, I was just coming off from working as a marketing director at a symphony orchestra, actually. But I really had to go back to my initial love, which is gardening and plants in the horticulture industry, and I couldn't be happier.
Isn't that crazy how it always makes a full circle,
Yeah.
around? So before we get started, because we have so many questions about this fabulous nursery and these products that you guys are growing, can you tell us about the Grand Garden Show and what that is and what you guys do with that?
Absolutely. So the Grand Garden Show is a event for home gardeners, nurseries. It's basically a consumer-based event, but people that are in the industry, of course, can attend and do attend. But it's really geared toward home gardeners, and it happens once a year at the end of August on Mackinac Island, which is in northern Michigan. It's on the lakes of, it's situated kind of in between two of the Great Lakes. So we're the Great Lakes state here in Michigan. It's between Lake Huron and the Straits of Mackinac. It's this beautiful island that really steps you back in time. Very few, other than emergency vehicles, there are no motor vehicles on the island. It's all horse and buggy and bicycles. And it has the beautiful and stately Grand Hotel. And that's where the Grand Garden Show takes place. Every year it sells out super fast. We had about 700 attendees last year, and they really, it's I think 3 full days. It's harder for me because I'm there longer because I like to work the show. It's exciting to see all the people and interact with them. But it's full days of going to educational sessions in the morning. We have lots of guests. We have Laura from Garden Answer there last year. We had Jenny Simpson from Creekside Nursery there. Paul Zammit was there from Ontario. They give these great educational sessions. I gave educational sessions. And then the afternoon, the attendees get to tour all of these magnificent gardens that are in the homes and some of the businesses on Mackinac Island. So it's really a way to immerse yourself in gardening, but also a way to see some gardens that you never would normally gain entrance to except for through this show.
So what are some of the types of education series they have?
Well, I mentioned Paul Zammit. He gives an education session on container gardening. So he talks about what makes a great container, what goes into a great container, how the seasons can change using these really spectacular, permanent, investment type of containers. Laura and Jenny did a Q&A. So people just got to ask questions that they've always wanted to ask those two. And they just sat on stage and answered them. Jack Barnwell always does a program. And he did a program where he talked about the different historical houses on the island and what's happened to them over the years and how all of his how he's planted around those houses because he owns a gardening architectural firm. So he goes in there and does a lot of the beautiful hardscaping and plantscaping around all of these homes and businesses. So he usually has a session. And then people like me from the partners, like I talk about new shrubs and companion planting. And Heidi Grassman has been there from Garden Crossings, who carries really beautiful Proven Winners plants. And she'll talk about what's coming up for the season. So there's always a wide selection of main stage programs, breakout programs, something for everybody, really.
That's great. So when do the tickets go on sale? So if someone wanted to attend for this next year, when should they be looking for that?
I just checked the site before we spoke and they're not on sale yet. I think I remember last year them saying they were sold out by February. So my guess is they're going to go on sale, within the next month. I would just keep looking at grandgardenshow.com to see, they'll probably post on there when they're going to go on sale first. So you can plan on getting your tickets. And it's a whole package. So you stay at the Grand Hotel, you eat at the Grand Hotel, you go to receptions that are connected with the program, and then you do all of this great programming within it.
That sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So moving into more information about Spring Meadow Nursery, tell us, you guys started in 1981. Tell us about the beginnings and then how it grew to be what it is today.
All right. So the owner of Spring Meadow Nursery, Dale Deppy, worked at a local nursery called Zelenka's Nursery way back in the 80s, late 70s and in the 80s. And he decided that this was something that he really wanted to do on his own. So he and his wife, Liz, bought their own nursery property, named it Spring Meadow Nursery in 1981, and began growing shrubs for resale and shrubs for sale to wholesale. We don't grow anything that's finished. So everything we grow is a starter plant that we sell to someone to finish growers. So they take those plants and they grow them to larger sizes, sell those to wholesalers, and then those go to your nursery. So he started doing that with all kinds of shrubs, generic shrubs, different kinds of branded shrubs. But at some point, he realized that the way to really expand your business and to grow a better plant is to be able to market a better plant. Because if you could grow the best plant in the United States or in Canada, but if you can't sell it, it doesn't matter how great that plant is. And that's when he decided to partner with Proven Winners, who had this idea that every time they sold a starter plant, a little bit of a marketing fee would be attached to each plant. And with that little bit of marketing fee, all accumulating in one big bucket, then they can start marketing those plants, which not only makes the plant more successful for the beginning grower like us, it makes the plant more successful for anybody that owns a nursery. So those people that own nurseries now can be sure that when they carry a Proven Winners plant, somebody's maybe seen it in Better Homes and Gardens, or they've seen it on a podcast like this because they can afford to hire someone like me to talk about it. They'll see it on social media and just in various places that allows us to really be the marketing engine that gets those plants to the forefront. So that's really how Spring Meadow started, from this really tiny little hoop house nursery to the over 50 acres under glass that we have now, growing exclusively Proven Winners Color Choice shrubs.
That's incredible. I mean, really, what an amazing story. So you said 50 acres under glass is what you guys are running right now. And then I've seen some of... can you tell us about the different areas of the way the nursery is set up? Because we've seen so many different things, like between like the trial gardens and seeing Christina kind of walking through these massive rows of hydrangea to things under. So can you explain about, like, if someone were to come and visit there, what can they expect?
Yeah, the nursery is broken up into a lot of sections. We have our propagation section of the nursery that is devoted simply to taking the cuttings. All of our shrubs are grown from cuttings. They're not grown from seed. They're not grafted. They're, little tops of plants that have been cut off larger plants, and they're rooted. So there's a greenhouse that's devoted just to that. There's a big section of greenhouse that's devoted just to putting those cuttings into containers. We have machinery that does that. We have people that do that. And then those go out into certain areas of the greenhouse where they're treated the way that plant needs to be treated to establish a root system. Then there's a section of greenhouse that's growing. So that's a little bit away from propagation. It takes these plants that have created their roots, but now they need to grow into a larger plant. So they'll all be on the floor. All the plants are grown on the floor. We call them liners because they're lined up in long lines on the floor of the nursery. So the liners grow out into the floor. They're trimmed several times throughout their growth cycle to encourage better branching, better leaf formation. And so that whole growing section comprises really the largest part of our nursery. And then we also have greenhouses that are devoted to research and development. So we work with breeders across the world, really. We work with breeders in the Netherlands. We work with breeders in Wisconsin. We work with breeders in North Carolina, and we have in-house breeders. And we have a breeding program where there's greenhouses that are associated with that, so they can work on what are the best traits of a plant? How do you get that in a new plant? And we have greenhouses that are devoted just to marketing plants. So if I want to send plants to people to trial, like I've sent plants to you, all those are grown actually out into full size, like that one behind you, so that they can go out and other people can see them. So that's a marketing plant grown especially for that purpose. So yes.
Well, and let's talk about this. Let's talk about this real quick. So we have been working together for a few years now. And one of the things that I love is how much you guys get excited when I make different creations and different things with the hydrangea, which is a huge passion of mine. So what I loved most about what they sent me was they actually sent me one with a bloom on it. So this is the level of quality that you can expect. This is out of the box. I mean, this is just insane how big this plant is. And then, like I said, makes me really excited because this is almost dried. So I don't know if you can hear that, but it's pretty crunchy. This makes me really excited. Plants like this are going to be fabulous in arrangements, in wreaths, in whatever I dream up to put them in. They dry beautifully. They're very heavily colored. And that's what I found why I prefer Proven Winners plants over anybody else's, is because they're so healthy. And starting with you guys, like you were saying, just the pruning and the proper trimming gives you these fabulous, healthy plants that grow, that they're off to already having a great start. So this guy might not be as big, but I mean, look at that. It's incredible. Just really very, very healthy so that they get to the best start from being first chance in the ground. I mean, I absolutely love them.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing we do really focus on, especially, let's just talk about hydrangea breeding, is there are some things that even, a home gardener might not realize, but an important thing for us are the stems really strong? Because you can have really great big flowers, but if the flowers are on the ground, that's not as great. So stem strength, we breed for really great foliage. Like you can see on that plant, really healthy green foliage, thick foliage that's not as liable to get black spot. And then, of course, flowering that is really, really dependable. So we've all heard about remontant hydrangeas. You have one sitting there behind you. Remontant just basically means it's reblooming. It blooms on old and new wood. So what we're doing more and more of is trying to figure out how do we make sure that old wood blooms bloom more reliably and then new wood blooms bloom faster, because nobody grows hydrangeas for foliage. So if we get the old wood bloom to be kind of foolproof, and then the new wood bloom not to wait until, like in cold climates, sometimes it can be October, that makes a really, really spectacular plant because it just blooms all season long. And that's what people love about flowering shrubs, and especially hydrangeas. It's just that length of bloom time is incredible.
Yeah. And so hardy. I know some of my limelights that get a lot of sun and they're on irrigation. I mean, they're incredible. I mean, just absolutely massive. They move a lot, when they're out in the middle of the yard and they're moving with the wind, the branches are a lot sturdier than some that I have like up against the house. So that is one thing I was kind of try to caution people with when they're putting the hydrangea in, to give it some space, to have some airflow around it, to prevent disease and pests and things like that. But really, it's no different than the trees. They have to move with the wind to get stronger. Mm-hmm. So in some of the most open spots is where you find the most fabulous, biggest hydrangea. But it's just incredible to me how when I started really getting invested in gardening in like 2014, the difference of the amount of varieties of hydrangea, the colors of hydrangea, the shapes, just all this hybridization is incredible. So when you're creating and doing all these different experiments, of the things that you guys have done, are you working within the same varieties, or are you creating some of these new varieties like the Quickfire and the Tidbit and all of those?
Some of the varieties are taken from plants we already have, like Firelight Tidbit is from our Firelight collection. It has that same deep red flower, but it's, as the name suggests, Tidbit. It's nice and tiny. Quickfire Fab comes from Quickfire, but it has that really, really bright color, but it's got a mop head bloom rather than Quickfire's lace cap bloom. But the one you have behind you, I think is that Let's Dance Skyview?
Yes.
Let's Dance Skyview is a really interesting hydrangea because it looks like a mop head, but that is actually a mountain hydrangea, big leaf hydrangea hybrid. And the reason that we did that is mountain hydrangeas tend to be more bud hardy. So those old wood blooms are less likely to freeze and get damaged with winter. But the mountain hydrangea only has a lace cap bloom. So what we wanted to do was give that bud hardiness of a mountain hydrangea, but the look of a big leaf hydrangea. So that's what that is. It's a hybrid, so it has the hardiness of mountain, has that great big mop head hydrangea bloom. It's going to bloom faster, it's going to bloom more prolifically, and it's going to bloom longer. So that's a lot of our breeding too, and that's something we're really doing a lot of when it comes to that style of hydrangea, is that Macrophylla serrata hybrid, which makes a really exciting collection of hydrangeas.
It's so exciting. I love it. I love it. Let's go over a couple others. So one thing that I love to do is make the dried floral arrangements. And I have no training in this. I have no nothing, but I have these. And this is really all you need. This is 100% dried. Okay, so this is how fabulous this is. I always try and tell my girlfriends, like right now, or, actually a couple weeks ago when these were really green before they were getting any spotting or any coloring, to cut them and put them right into the vase the way you want them and, form them out and just leave them. No water, nothing. I start to cut them and just bring them into the basement. You should see my basement. It looks like a hydrangea bomb went off. It's just, they're everywhere. They're everywhere, every place I can find a spot for it. But I've been able to create weddings from this, create fall tablescapes, and even, some of the things I wanted to show the viewers was something like this. This was cut just on Friday. Okay. So this was cut Friday. Today is Tuesday, right? Tuesday. So these were dry by Sunday. I mean, and just to see, this is a late pick. I was in Ohio. And so everything is so fabulous there, but I was able to just pick these. I don't know. These were my mother's. These were on our property. I don't know exactly what variety this is, but they are they're old. I mean, within 10 years or so, but this also came from this same plant. And these are two different hydrangea that I collected last year and then collected this year. So you can see that with a year of color, they actually look just as pretty, and they're cream. So they can be used for the white palettes where you've got the pinks over here. So they're just completely and utterly rewarding. When people ask me what kind of plant should I start to buy for my property, I always tell people start with hydrangea. Start with hydrangea, make sure you have water to them if possible. And they're just the plant that keeps on giving. Here in Missouri and where you are too, it gets so cold and so drab in the winters. And when I can still pull in my driveway and see these long lines of these fluffy, flowery heads all through winter, it's just, there's something so satisfying about it.
Yeah, and people often ask about when they're supposed to prune their hydrangeas. And you can prune them, early in the winter if you want, but I love also just leaving them on all winter long. That winter interest, not only do they look beautiful when the snow catches them, or just when they get that really antique-y, beautiful dried color, they provide food for the birds, especially those lace cap styles that you were holding in your hand. Yeah, it's not just summer. Like, they can provide interest to your garden all year long.
And what's interesting is I just yesterday harvested, I had some quick fires that had turned brown, but the inside was still green. So I was able to harvest them and dry them. And I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to be something similar to, having the green of this, but brown petals. So even though I missed the mark of getting them when they were pink, they're still equally, and I tell people the exact same thing. I say, why wouldn't you leave them for the winter? I mean, I know some people, they just want to cut them down. Like it's over. It's, summer's done, this and that. And they want to take them out. Makes me crazy. I'm like, give it a second. Like, wait, but when they go through winter, I have to tell you here, I mean, they even hold up so well. They're all over the property. I'm now at 131 and 132 hydrangea on the property. So, it's a little bit of a hoarding thing for me, but I don't have to really cut them until I think it's probably like February, like late January, February, they start to look a little scrappy. Maybe some snow has fallen on them, have snapped the different branches and things like that. I'll see them tumbling through the yard. But other than that, I mean, they really do hold up very, very well. And then, same difference with the pruning. I always tell people, if you want them to get really big, then just deadhead them and let them be. If you want to keep them controlled, my neighbor up the street has a beautiful row of them in front of her house, and it's a porch. So she doesn't want them to grow too tall. So we just started cutting them to like a foot off the ground every year, and they're magnificent. I mean, absolutely. I'm going to make sure they put a picture in of this because it is absolutely breathtaking. So it's just such a forgiving plant for a new gardener as you're getting used to pruning. And Are there any tips or tricks that you know of that you could give us for if you want them to grow very large, or any pruning advice?
Well, that was a really good point that you made about pruning them down if you want them to stay small. Now, I'm not going to say that you're going to be able to make a limelight be 4 feet tall. Limelight's not created to be a 4 foot tall plant. But let's say you have a bobo. If you want that to stay small, it's just like you said, give it a good hard prune at the beginning of the season, and it's going to maintain that compact size. People seem to think, well, my bobo said that it's only supposed to be 3 to 4 feet tall. And it's, 5, 6 feet tall. Well, they've only deadheaded it. They've never pruned it down. So if it's going to get really happy, it's going to get really happy, and it could exceed the size on the tag. So it is a really good point that you make when you have, buy a plant, first of all, that on the tag says it's going to be the size you want, but then don't be afraid to give it a good hard prune, especially these ones that bloom on exclusively new wood, like panicle hydrangeas. You can prune those down really hard. maintain their size. And all it's going to do is it's going to give you better branching as well. It's going to be branched lower to the ground. So you're not going to get a tall, like this. Sometimes they can get a leggy look up underneath at the very bottom. It won't do that as much too when you prune them down a little lower. And so, I mean, there's so much you could talk about when it comes to pruning. We have a whole page that's just called Pruning Demystified and Hydrangeas Demystified, because each type of hydrangea needs to be treated so differently. If you have a remonted hydrangea, the best thing you can really do is wait until the spring. They don't necessarily need to be pruned at all. You can wait until the spring, deadhead it, and then you're not going to cut off any of the buds. In the spring, you're going to see that bud on the stem, and you can prune just above it. That bud that you see on the stem that's formed over the winter on those old wood stems is ready to go. So, all you got to do is use your eyes, and you can make sure that you're not pruning off all of your flowers. A lot of the new hydrangeas we're making create buds all the way up the stems. So even if you pruned a foot off from it, you're still going to get old wood blooms. Your really traditional remontant hydrangeas bloom at the tips only. So those old wood blooms, and to make sure you're not, cutting them off, just wait until spring. Cut off all the old dead flower heads, or wait until it's completely dormant and you can see that bud, and cut just above that bud. Arborescens are the same thing. A smooth hydrangea, like an Annabelle or an Incredible, those are a new wood, like a panicle hydrangea. They bloom exclusively on new wood. Cut them back by a third so that they grow nice, healthy, strong, full habits, and they'll make you happy all season long.
What do you think of all the varieties that you have been acquainted with? Which do you think are the most reliable?
Panicle hydrangeas. They're the easiest to grow and the most reliable hydrangea that you can find if you have a good amount of sun. Panicles really like a lot of sun. Unless you're growing down where it's really, really hot, like in Florida, Alabama, then you can put them in some shade just simply because they're going to want a little bit of cool. They're going to want a respite from the heat and the sun at some point. But where I live, I think even in Missouri, putting those in full sun will make them so happy. Like you said, where they can get some wind blowing around them, helps make their stems stronger, makes them more healthy. There's hardly anything you can do wrong with a panicle hydrangea, I think, because it blooms on new wood. Same with smooth hydrangeas, though. Those are also really, really easy to grow, and they can take a little bit of shade. So if you have a partly shaded location, smooth hydrangea, also super, super easy to grow. You just hack them back and they'll grow and bloom for you every season.
Well, and what I love about them too is I always love to experiment, and so I've put all of these hydrangea that I have. I mean, they're all over the property. They're in shade. They're in 100% full shade. They're in sunlight. They're in the whole thing. And what I've noticed with the ones that are in a lot of shade, in a shade garden, it can be so boring and there's so few options available. And so what I've noticed here is that, with the limelights, I did the full size limelights across the front row. So they don't get nearly the amount of blooms as something that has, but they get blooms. Like they'll get 5, 10 blooms, just enough to give it a little bit of interest. And the blooms are obviously much smaller. They're probably about this big full size versus, the one this you were size. Just holding. So, but it's just crazy. Yes. Yeah. This is a full sun. This is a full sun. So, but what's crazy to me is that, again, they find this way to adapt, but they don't ever just give up.
Right.
You know what I mean? They just kind of they adapt, and then they do what they have to do for that spot. And so another one that I found that's been really rewarding here is the quickfire, because the quickfire I can put in the shade and I'll still get a reasonable number of blooms. And it's got trees all around it, so it allows you to kind of elevate your gardening in shaded areas where most people are just used to seeing hostas and ferns and, just kind of a lot of more of the same. This gives you just ability to have, and I don't ever cut those. I let them just be. I will prune them and deadhead them in the winter, but then let them just keep growing and branching out consistently. But they've just been a real treat, to have here and have all the different varieties. So what else can you tell us about what's on the horizon? What are some of the newer varieties that you guys are introducing right now?
Are we still talking about hydrangeas or all shrubs in general?
That's a good question. How about if we do, what's most exciting to you right now, being that you're on kind of ground zero to see everything going on? What's most exciting?
Hydrangeas are always exciting, but we're doing some new things with roses right now that I really, really find pretty thrilling because in the past, we've always grown shrub roses, and shrub roses are great for a certain purpose. Shrub roses are reblooming, so they bloom all season long. They're great for landscaping because they're super, super tough. They're usually a nice mound, or they're low and spreading, and there's lots and lots of small, colorful flowers on them. The problem with shrub roses has always been they don't have any scent. Right? They're a very, very functional plant. They're very beautiful, but they're grown for a certain function, a landscaping type function. Don't get me wrong. I have beautiful shrub roses in my garden, but we've recently started working with this all-female breeding team out of Serbia called Gino. And what they've brought to the Proven Winners brand is reminiscent roses. So it's this new rose series they're these full, beautiful. They look like a garden rose. They're reminiscent of a certain rose that is a man's name that I'll just say the initials, DA. Similar looking to those roses. So that beautiful old-fashioned English garden looking rose, and beautifully scented. But the thing that's different about them is they're a reblooming rose. Like all of our Proven Winners roses, we would not introduce them unless we've tested them to make sure that their foliage is highly resistant to black spot and powdery mildew. So they have the ease of growth of a shrub rose. They look like these old-fashioned English garden roses. So we have 3 that just came out. Reminiscent crema, which is a kind of a buttermilk white color. Coral, which is kind of a pinky coral color, and then reminiscent pink, which is that really, really soft, traditional pink, light pink looking garden rose color. So those are what I'm really, really thrilled about because it's such a new vision for roses for us. Dare I say, we have a whole booklet called A New Vision for Roses, but it's really a new territory for us when it comes to introducing roses because it's important to us as a shrub manufacturer, or as a shrub grower. Manufacturing is a wrong word for that, but as a shrub grower, they have to be easy to grow. It's just great to find something like that fits both categories. That looks like a hybrid tea but acts like a shrub rose. So that's the series Reminiscent. There's more to come. There's even one coming from this breeder, which is a different series, and it's not out yet, but I'm going to tell you about it. It's from a new series that we're going to have coming out in a year called Flavorette. And the petals, although we know all rose petals are edible, these rose petals have certain distinct flavors. So, they're a regular rose, they're a hybrid rose, but they're a reblooming rose, and they just have a little bit of a distinct flavor to them. So this first one that we're going to introduce in 2024 has a honey apricot kind of flavor. And we'll see more and more of those coming from Gino as well. So I think the rose horizon is really, really exciting for Proven Winners Color Choice. There's a lot coming out. We have a whole climbing rose series we just introduced as well. Those are also scented. Those have a few colors, and we're coming out with more and more of those. So we're doing a lot of really fun things with roses that I'm really excited about.
Well, we definitely love that you guys are putting all this hard work in and figuring out what's the best so that we, as homeowners, don't have to do that work. So we appreciate that. We are completely out of time. And I think we've made it through like a third of our questions. So a couple things. You mentioned going to your site, which we will have in the caption, the link that you mentioned previously. What else can people go to your site to learn about?
If people go to provenwinnerscolorchoice.com, not only can they learn about all the shrubs we carry, but we have blog posts on that site so they can learn gardening tips and tricks. They can find out where the nearest retailer is to them. So there's a retailer searching tool on there. So you can just put in your zip code, find out where you can find them, where you can find our plants locally, because we always like to encourage people to go to their local garden center. So that's really important. And we have whole pages that are devoted to hydrangea care and hydrangea identification, rose care. We have videos. I mean, there's so many resources there. You have to check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, and then if you are interested in learning more about Spring Meadow Nurseries, you can check out PW Color Choice on Instagram. Are there any other social media outlets you guys are active on?
We have PW Color Choice on, like you said, Instagram. We have it on Facebook. We even have a TikTok. So all you got to do is look for PW Color Choice on all three and check us out, follow us. And if you like it, make a comment.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage people to follow, because one of my favorite things that you guys do is when Christina does the tours. So she'll do beautiful, beautiful garden tours of all the different pairings that you guys have together. And that's on the front end of the building, right? So that's a kind of your entrance.
Yeah, that's right.
It is magnificent. I mean, it is absolutely breathtaking. And what I love what she does is show it throughout the different times of the year. But what's most inspiring for me is the springtime, when we're coming out of winter and everything is so, to be able to watch your gardens and see the different, oh, that's red in January, that's yellow in March, and like see the different things that make the colors, so that if you want to have a more colorful garden throughout the whole year, you can check your trial gardens to see what everything looks like and then pair things together. And it's brilliant. And I love those tours. I really, really enjoy that. So other than that, do you have any closing words for us? Anything that you would like to talk about?
Check out our TikTok. When you want to talk about Christina doing interesting things. I was just on there the other day, and she's walking down one of our trial fields where we take all of our cuttings at one time of the season, and bam, it's another time of the season. So you see these rows and rows of hydrangeas that are all green, and then blammo, they're pink. So if you want to see some great changes and out in these beautiful stock fields, check out Christina and what she's doing on social. It's amazing.
Love it. Okay, so that is PW Color Choice. Definitely be sure to check them out. And again, this is a brutal, brutal social media world. So if you could leave a like, a comment, a save, whatever you could do to engage, we would really, really appreciate that, especially if we've taught you something or you enjoyed this episode. So Natalie, thank you again for everything. Thank you for spending your time with us today.
Thanks for having me here. I'm thrilled to do it.